Welcome back, Misfits. Guess what? Riley J. Dennis put out a new video today. And the name of this video is The Truth About My Transition. Yes, he's actually going to tell us the truth. That should be interesting. So, let's get started.
Hey everybody.
Hey, Riley.
Today, the day this video is going live, I'm going to be on my way to San Francisco in preparation for my facial feminization surgery, or FFS for short.
Facial feminization, whatever, FFS, whatever. I apparently can't say that today. Or possibly ever, I don't know, it could be just one of those words. But anyways, that's probably going to be a rather long surgery because there's going to be a lot of work to have to be done to feminize that face. That may be a bit, mean, but I'm sure you'd agree. So, I don't feel so bad.
I debated if I should make this video for a long time. My desire to share my personal life online has dwindled a lot in recent months.
I wonder why. I mean, you like to put out a lot of rather questionable content, so why not your personal life? I mean, let's see, we know that you consider yourself a lesbian, that you're in a polyamorous long-distance relationship. Yeah, and you seem to think that all lesbians should have sex with transgendered women, regardless of whether they want a dick in them or not. So I think we know a lot already.
I almost just wanted to disappear for a couple weeks, come back with a noticeably different face, and just not address it.
Why wouldn't you address it? You know that people would be going, wait a minute, what the fuck? What's going on here? You know it would be a huge topic of conversation. Why would you just not address it? That doesn't make any sense.
Lots of things about my personal life are easy to just not mention. I don't talk about a lot of things online, but FFS is a bit harder to hide since my face is in every single one of my videos.
Yeah, we noticed and we're not that happy about that. You should do the avatar thing. I think, we'd all be quite happy with that. Not having to look at you, only having to listen. Well, we don't really have to listen to you. We're always curious about what kind of strange shit's gonna come out of your mouth next.
Okay, let me rewind because to understand this decision, I need to give you some backstory about my time on YouTube.
I think we know. Why do we have to backtrack here? I mean, we've all seen you and your history on YouTube, so you just trying to make this video longer? I mean, I wonder how long your videos actually would be if you didn't edit the way you do. I mean, if you actually let there be pauses between the things you said. I wonder how long your videos would be then, because shit. Sure makes my editing of your videos hard. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Probably do that on purpose, don't you?
I first started making videos, my goal wasn't to be the anti-feminist punching bag that I am today.
Does that mean that you actually, are making videos now to become a anti-feminist punching bag? Is that what you're saying? So I'm sure that nobody actually makes that their goal and when they decide to make videos. So, is that actually your goal now? Are you troll? Are you a troll? Really? Be a pretty good troll. I kind of doubt it. I really doubt that you are meaning to be a punching bag.
I Even really make social justice videos. I made videos about books and wanted to talk about my life. I saw that there were communities of smaller YouTubers and I wanted to be a part of that. Eventually, just because I'm a really opinionated person, I guess, I started making videos about my opinions. Thanks to Everyday Feminism promoting them, those got a lot more views than I ever thought possible. Of course, with more positive attention came the start of negative attention as well. But it was tolerable. The occasional comment attacking my appearance, vaguely worded death threats in my DMs, one or two boring response videos. It wasn't so bad.
So vaguely veiled death threats are okay? You're okay with that? Just fine and dandy. Ooh, I got a death threat today. Hot dog. That's okay with you? Is that okay with most people? I mean, most people bear with it because, it's all online bullshit, but, are you really seriously saying that it's just fine and dandy to you? As long as it's a vaguely veiled threat?
I knew that putting myself online would open me up to that sort of thing. So, of course, it got under my skin, but it wasn't constant. It was manageable. So I still felt like my channel was small enough and I was unimportant enough that I could continue to share my personal life with the world.
Just like myself, you're still unimportant enough. Just saying. You're not important. No more so than anybody else on YouTube. We're all just a bunch of regular fucking people putting our own bullshit out there and seeing if people are actually entertained by it. People will just happen to be entertained by the bullshit you put out, but in a negative way.
Be clear about something. I never wanted to talk about being trans on my channel. In fact, I started my channel before I had even come out to my family or most of my friends. I was still figuring out my own identity at the time and wasn't completely sure that I was trans. So my vision for my channel was never to be a transgender YouTuber documenting my transition. It was just a place to talk about stuff and find community.
I can understand if that wasn't your initial thought process and intention to make it be about you being transgendered, as you say you are. But considering most of your commentary and most of your thought process is based from the idea of being transgendered, there's really going to be no way around that. Especially when your viewpoint about being transgendered is so extreme that the thoughts that you put out there are so extreme about calling everybody else names just because the world isn't exactly the way you fucking want it to be. What was my point? I've already forgotten. Oh well. See if you get to a point.
Sure if you're aware, but there are a lot of amazing trans YouTubers out there who do talk about their transition and document that on their various channels.
Yeah, and they're actually real transgendered people. And, well, I don't know. We're probably watching different transgendered, video creators, so yours are probably, more transgenders. I'm actually watching, actual transgendered people who do have interesting and amazing stories about their transition, which is what your fucking video's supposed to be about, so let's get the fuck to it already. You can't tease us with calling it the truth about my transition if you never get to the goddamn part about the actual transition that we've all been waiting for you to actually have.
Kinds of videos are invaluable. I needed those videos to figure out who I was, and I know that other trans people rely on those videos for the same reason. So huge shout out to all the trans YouTubers out there who are brave enough to document their transition online like that. But my goal was never to be one of those channels. I think they're important and I appreciate them, but that's not what I wanted my channel to be. And that doesn't make me better than them in any way.
Nobody in their right fucking mind would think you were better than any of them. Apparently, in the back of your subconscious, you apparently think that you are. If you would bring that the fuck up, because trust me, with all the hate that you get and all the backlash that you get about your transgenderism, I'm pretty sure you're aware that majority of the people out there do not think you're anywhere near even an ounce better than these other YouTubers who are sharing their actual transitions with the world so people will, understand better what an actual transgender person goes through. Don't be so far up your own fucking ass.
One thing that I think is extremely important in normalizing queer people is having prominent queer people in the media just living their lives.
You don't just live your life, you spout a bunch of bullshit calling everybody else transphobic and racist. I mean, you're not living, you're just living your life. You're not a good example. You're putting down anybody else in the world.
Great when trans people are out fighting for trans rights and educating people about trans issues, but we're not all activists.
No, you're not all activists and you shouldn't have to be, but excuse me, you're the one who calls yourself a fucking activist. These people, these transgendered people who are just documenting their lives aren't calling themselves activists. They're the ones who are just living their lives. You're the one who is pretending to be a fucking activist when all you do is spew a bunch of hate and bullshit. I'm spewing a little bit of hate myself right now, but I'm realizing that this video is 26 minutes long, and other than saying that he is actually going to have some surgery done, you're just telling us about your fucking life. Get to the point of why we are all here. God. I don't know if I'm going to be able to take this, people. Oh my God. Hope it gets to the point soon. Jesus.
Media often focuses on the stories of queer people only when those stories are centered around their queerness. So you'll probably only see queer people in a movie if they're dealing with coming out or transitioning or something. But I want to see more queer people just fucking doing shit that's completely unrelated to being queer.
Just shut up and just live your fucking life. Start making vlogs and shut the fuck up. Do your transition if you're really transgendered and live your goddamn life. Stop calling everybody cis white scum.
Story may be important, but it's not the only important story that queer people have to tell. Queer people are doing amazing, important things in the world that have nothing to do with being queer.
Plus, hold on a second. I know that queer has been latched on to as this fucking umbrella term to cover everybody who isn't just a heterosexual nowadays. But, why do you keep talking queer? I thought you were talking about being transgendered. Now you're just going off on this queer. Get to the point. For the love of God, get to the point.
Trans, for me, is not the most important part of my identity. And many other queer people feel the same way. But when the world is focused on our queerness, we're rarely allowed to be anything else.
Sweetheart, you're the only one in the fucking world who's focusing on the fact that you are queer. Nobody else is. Actually, we're on the other side of the fence saying that you're not fucking queer. That you're not a lesbian. That you were a fucking cross-dresser. And you made this video to prove that you were actually going to go through with transitioning to show that you are a transgendered person. But you won't shut up about any... Why am I doing this to myself? I was relaxing, rewatching Haven, just laying on my bed, chilling out, smoking a cigarette, drinking some tea, watching Haven. Saw this came out, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta hop the fuck on this right now so I can actually, not be lazy for once. And, you're driving me fucking crazy now. I guess that at least is making this video more entertaining than it was in the beginning, but damn it, man.
I think It's important to just have queer people in the media doing their thing. I want young queer kids to have people to look up to. I want there to be queer news reporters, queer chefs, queer YouTubers, queer CEOs, queer politicians.
There are. There are.
When they're not coming out or transitioning, queer people have jobs and family and friends and opinions, and they...
No, they don't. No, they don't. I'm going to go against you now. And I'm going to say, because the just stupid audacity, just the complete meaningless of this that you were talking about. Let's say no. No. They don't. They're just held up in their houses, doing nothing, slowly dying. Just, yeah. Now, do you think anybody actually believes that? No. Then they don't need to be fucking told that they're just out there living their lives when they're not coming out of the closet. Fucking duh! Duh!
Contribute things to the world that have nothing to do with their queerness. And it's important for people to see that queer people are diverse and don't only exist as coming out stories or transition stories. So part of my goal with my YouTube channel now that I've come out is just to exist as a visible trans person on the internet. I want people to see that trans people are more than just their transition story. I want young closeted trans kids to see me and realize that those weird feelings they have about gender are okay. I want them to know that coming out won't mean that their entire life has to revolve around being trans.
So your only consideration in this whole thing is just to make sure that that trans kids feel okay. But and in doing so, you actively call everybody else who isn't a trans kid names. Yeah, that's a very good example there. Yeah, good example you should.
Cisgender people to see me and realize that maybe the stereotype of trans people they have in their head is inaccurate.
No, the stereotype that most people nowadays have about transgendered people, yes, it's far from you, because it's actually people with struggles. It's actually people who need and want to transition. I almost brain farted there. So let's do it. Get on with it.
I want to be a person on the internet who also happens to be trans. Of course, sometimes I'm going to talk about trans issues anyway, because those things affect me on a daily basis. I'm not going to be ashamed of being trans, and I'm not going to try to hide it. I deal with a lot of shit just for being trans, and I know that a lot of trans people have it way worse than me.
Sweetheart, you deal with a lot of shit because of the bullshit you fucking pass off on your channel. Not because you're transgendered. Because most people don't believe you're transgendered. And considering the fact that your video about what you're doing to transition is going absolutely nowhere, proves the point. You don't get shit about being transgendered. You get shit about pulling this kind of bullshit and calling other people names.
Getting back to my story, as my YouTube channel grew, I started to realize how massively uneducated most people are about trans issues. Like, I don't think most people actively and intentionally hate trans people. I think most people are just uninformed. So the solution to that, I think, is to educate them. So I made more and more videos about trans issues, explaining things calmly and citing all my sources, hoping to get people to just think about this stuff. At the same time, the harassment I was receiving was getting worse and worse. It became constant. Tweets, messages, emails, all day, every day, insulting my appearance and my intelligence and misgendering me and telling me to kill myself. It was too much. So I started sharing less about my personal life online. I talked about trans people as a distant concept instead of talking about my own personal experiences.
Didn't help. I'm assuming. Because just, as your channel has gotten bigger, more and more videos are being made about you. Disagreeing with you. So you might want to notice that it's not, you might actually have clued into, if you used your brain, that it's one of two things. Either number one, it's just because some people online just like to be assholes, regardless of what reasoning. And number two, that maybe isn't just because you're a transgender person. Maybe it's because of the shit that you spew. You might want to think about that. Just sharing some wisdom with you. Might be something you really should think about.
If I didn't give people the ammo to talk about my personal life, they wouldn't. I could not have been more wrong. The reaction from people was largely to pry even further into my personal life. In fact, people started making assumptions about my private life that were just entirely untrue. So I shut off even further. I refused to talk about my transition online at all, whereas I used to casually mention it. And people just kept speculating. Entire communities sprung up around hating me and discussing how I'm not really a true trans. It was, and still is, very obsessive and creepy to me, honestly.
Because the idea, I understand where you're coming from. I can understand that. I can understand that wholeheartedly. But you don't seem to be able to grasp why things happen. Why people are obsessing about this. Because majority of people are, pretty much think that you are being destructive towards the communities that you are saying you are standing up for. You're causing harm, and people like to point that out. Plus, a lot of your points of views are very just, you guys know. You know. I don't need to go on. We might just pause here for you, and I will hopefully get to the point where he actually talks about what this video is supposed to be about, so you don't have to strain your brain the way I am. Thank me later.
The reason I really hate talking about this, though, is because several large YouTubers have been peddling the myth that I'm not really trans for well over a year now. They say I'm not a true trans because they claim I'm not taking any steps to transition, like not taking hormones and not having surgeries.
I am curious if you have started taking hormones. Because recently, I saw cuts, a few snippets of a video. And it kind of looked like your boobs were growing. They didn't really look like boobs, but I just noticed either that or your nipples were like really hard and they were like poking out to like that much. I don't know. Maybe it was a visual effect. I don't know. But I am wondering if you are on hormones. Because there seems to be a little bit of difference in the boob area, considering you always seem to wear thin-skinned tank tops. I've seen your hard nipples way too many fucking times now. Please put on train bra or some pasties or something. Please?
Is those things are not requirements to being trans. Trans people do not have to prove their transness by being prescribed hormones or by having surgery. And I refuse to play into those rules. FFS does not make someone trans. Hormones do not make someone trans. If you're cis and have surgery or take hormones, you're still cis. A trans person is trans because they experience their gender as something different than what they were assigned at birth.
As the opposite gender. You guys need to you non-binary types, because I'm assuming that's what you're kind of getting at, that if you're not going to transition to the opposite gender, then you can still be trans. It is meaning that you are some other gender than the two that there are. You people need to get your own fucking name. Either that, or we just need to stop calling Here, this is the thing. I'm going to stop this. I'll call you a transgendered person. How about that? I will stop calling you and Milo and all the other fucking non-binary people transgendered. And from now on, I'm going to go with the classic transsexual for the real transgendered people. Though, still, transgender doesn't still quite follow the guidelines of you guys because, especially with what you're arguing against right now, because it has the prefix trans in it, meaning transitioning. So if you don't transition in any way other than just putting some eyeliner on, I don't get it, but whatever. Okay, you're just not transsexual. How about that? You're not a transsexual. Huh? Does that work for you? Does that work for you?
People who don't have access to hormones or surgery are still 100% trans. Trans people who can't or don't want to take hormones are still trans. Trans people who can't afford or don't want surgery are still trans. Being trans is not defined by hormones or surgery. Surgeries and hormones do not change your gender identity. External things like that do not affect your internal sense of gender, which is what being trans is.
Okay, you actually have a good point for once. Yes, a transsexual can still be a transsexual if they cannot transition. Whether it be for health reasons or, like you said, costs. Yes, costs are a huge, gigantic part of this. But they still try a lot more than you. Just saying.
I don't want this to come across as me trying to prove that I'm a good trans now. I will be just as trans after FFS as I was before FFS.
I'm starting to get the feeling from some of the stuff that you've said that the whole reason you haven't gone forward, or at least, voiced the actual things that you've done to transition, is because you just want to put your foot down and go, no, I'm not going to let them know. Fuck them. That was a really shitty impression of a child, but you know what I mean. You're stomping your foot down going, no. Maybe that's a little better. I am so bored of this. I know I said I was going to skip ahead. I did a little bit. But holy shit, people. My recording's at 36 minutes. And, I'm not even halfway done with Riley's video. Ooh, this may have to be a two-parter or some shit. I don't know.
The judge of who is really trans, because that's a pretty big responsibility. We'd have to set up a whole bureaucratic system for trans people to apply for true trans status, and we'd have to collectively agree on the criteria for someone being classified as a real trans person. But the reality is that no matter what criteria you come up with, it'd be bullshit. If a person feels that they're trans, they're trans. Just like how if a person feels that they're cisgender or straight or gay or bisexual, we should just believe them. We don't need to constantly test everyone's identity and make them prove who they are.
Well, a homosexual, lesbian, or bisexual, usually, you don't have to test. It's usually pretty obvious with who they actually have sex with. That's usually a rather good indicator of what somebody's sexual orientation is. Just saying. There's no test that needs to be done. It's usually just, how they live their lives. That's just who they fuck. No test needed, just saying.
You don't become trans when the doctor signs a prescription for hormone replacement therapy. You don't become trans when a doctor removes some bone from your face or surgically alters your genitals. You don't become trans when a judge allows you to change your name. And you don't become trans the first time someone perceives you as a gender other than the one you were assigned at birth.
You're right here again. But still, your logic isn't, all the way there. You haven't really put enough thought into this. No, these things are not what makes a person trans. It does not validate their transness. But here's the thing. Typically, transsexuals, what they go through, the emotional, the feeling that they're in the wrong body, they need to seek professional help. For the simple fact that, not to validate them, but some people just have a mental issue. I mean, yes, you could call this, and I think some people do call this, a mental issue. But there is a difference between having a transgendered mental issue and just a mental issue that is not actually transgendered. And if you have that and then transition, you're not going to be any happier. They go through transitioning. They do these things like taking hormones, getting their name changed, actually living their lives as the opposite gender, getting that legal documentation to try to make their disassociated state better, to try to make them happier, to get to a point where they can be happy with who they are and feel comfortable with who they are. Because otherwise they may not be able to get to that point. And that's why it's important. So they do not have to feel that horrible. And God forbid end up doing something really bad to themselves. So even though it doesn't validate who they are and their identity, it is as important steps towards them becoming who they need to be happy.
Paradox these people don't seem to be able to see is that they're saying you have to fully know you're trans before seeking hormones and surgery, but you're not actually trans until you've gotten those things. So they're saying that being trans is a choice, that people choose to do these things and become trans.
Alright, people, I can't do this. I'm sorry, I can't do this. I will still put this video out, what I've made already, but you know what? I am still not halfway through with this fucking video. And I don't want to stand here and have to pause every 5 seconds to argue against whatever the fuck he's saying. You know what? I don't care. I don't fucking care. One thing that you do definitely have a point with is that it's not any of my fucking business. It's not my fucking business. So you know what? I don't fucking care anymore. I'm probably at this point in time, because I'm so agitated right now from watching this video, I may not ever make another Riley video again because this is excruciating. I hope that you are happy with whatever you are doing, the FFS or whatever it's called, because I can't pronounce it correctly, surgery you're having. I hope you're happy with it. I might check back to just see what you had done out of curiosity. But yeah, you know what? Fuck you. I'm over it. So, thanks you guys for watching me suffer the way I have. And, this is probably going to be hard to edit. But oh well, thanks for watching. And I will see you around. Like, subscribe, click on the bell, and follow me on Twitter. I wish I smoked pot so I could just fucking chill the fuck out now. I'll find some other way. Bye.